The sky so far, but I can't lose it.
Let's be innovative. Let's challenge a norm. Let's raise the bar. Let's be the elite.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Butt Kicker, are ready to race.
It's time to throw out the form book in the Lionheart IndyCar Series as we venture to pastures new once more. Yes, Phil Krause has been the dominant force in 2022, winning 6 of our 8 races so far, but as the Dallara IRA teams head across the globe to visit the land of the rising sun, it's anyone's game to claim the inaugural victory at Japan's premier motorsports facility. This is Suzuka, and this is the Graphics Grand Prix of Suzuka, presented by Weld My Ride. Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceSpot TV for coverage of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. The Lionheart IndyCar Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined, as always, in the broadcast booth by the one and only Justin Prince, and we're ready to get underway in the land of the rising sun. And to do that, we need to dive straight into our butt-kicker pre-race show. 2022, JP, has been the year of Phil Krause, but we head to a tight, flowing, technical road course, one that's going to challenge drivers, one where qualifying, as always, is going to be key.
Track position very critical when it comes to this series, and we've seen throughout the season in particular on the ovals how tight qualifying can be within a tenth of a second for the top 25. At the road courses this season, there's a bit more of a spread, but with a track like Suzuka, not too many reference notes to say the very least for drivers entering tonight. Not too much experience for a few of the drivers in turn entering tonight. It's a potential unknown for a few competitors to how they can play and how they perform tonight, Arjuna.
Talking to some of the drivers, they didn't even own this track until a couple of days ago. That's how much into the unknown we truly are going here today. Let's dive then into our next level racing schedule because we're approaching the halfway marker, and most significantly of all, we're only a week and a half away from the HyperX Indianapolis 500, the second of our Triple Crown races, the second of our double points races. And of course, the reason why it's special, JP, is not just because we're going to the Brickyard for our pilgrimage to Speedway, Indiana, but because a week from today, same time, same place, we don't have a race, we have the HyperX race for the pole.
And as we know, when it comes to qualifying at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the tradition to try and set 4 flying laps to try and make sure you execute 4 corners each of those 4 laps, to make sure you execute with one major chance to get the job done. Qualifying in about a week's time going to be very, very, very stressful for the drivers to say the very least. But when it comes to tonight, keep in mind, we've seen plenty of different road courses, street circuits, sweeping corners like Silverstone, more technical tracks, such as tonight. It could be the type of night where anything could happen at Suzuka.
We're only 3 races away from the halfway marker. It's our second new track on the schedule. Of course, at the start of May, we went to the Nashville Super Speedway on the concrete surface there, our first new track in 2022. Here's a look at the butt kicker driver standings with 6 wins in 8 races. Yes, you'd assume right. Phil Krause has a lead that is somewhat looking insurmountable. We're not even halfway through. There's a long way to go. Van der Sant sits second. Your defending champion sits in third. And the rookie, Caleb Benzie, has been ultra impressive for Team Race First to be in front of the likes of Connor Harrington and Jason Brophy, staples in this series, in this car as well. But when you look at these names, you see 3 private label Team Hype drivers, you see 3 Power Slide Adrenaline drivers, and that's why, JP, when we look at our HyperX team standings, those are the 2 running away. The gap has come down very slightly in the last couple of rounds. It is still, though, the private label Team Hype domination of these team standings that dates back for more than a calendar year.
Those 2 teams absolutely stacked in talent we've seen throughout the campaign and across the iRacing service when it comes to the depth they have in their organizations. Phil Krause been a huge part of the private label Team Hype's charge this season. It's not a surprise to see that, especially seeing how well he performed when he started in some events in 2021. And Power Slide Adrenaline, well, they basically retooled more than rebuilt, to say the least, with Adam Blocker trying to go full-time, but also bringing Alexander Van de Sen into the loop, and Andrew Kinsella, and a few others to try and score points under that banner, and add a few more banners in turn for Power Slide, as you see with Power Slide Ignition, for example, in 6th.
close for fourth on back, so keep an eye out for that. But of course, our focus will be at the top of these team standings. Let's take a look then at our butt kicker rookie standings, where you lead the driver standings, you'll lead the rookie standings if you qualify as well. So it's Phil Kraus, Van der Sant, and Benzi through the top three. Alexis Newsom, Andrew Marquez, fourth and fifth, with the somewhat disappointing Robert Milechka so far in 2022. Let's see what he's got in store for us today with Mitchell Riggs, Adriano Pinheiro, who put it on pole to start the season in consecutive races, but has somewhat slid backwards since then. AJ Musselman and Kite Bommersbach through the top 10 in these very close and competitive rookie standings, as long as you're looking fourth on back. Here's a look then at your Gomez Sim Industry Series details in Season 10 of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, Year 9 of the Lionheart Racing Series. You're campaigning in this Dallara IRA team, the newest of our American open wheel machines, a custom fixed setup with in-car adjustments, the setup built by RaceBot's own Andrew Kinsella. Cash and prizes have jumped almost $3,000 from 2021, where we have $10,600 in prize money to be handed out. Our series champion will win a Gomez Sim Industries Formula Pro Elite steering wheel, as well as a Next Level Racing GT track cockpit. Of course, coming towards the second of our Triple Crowns, the eyes coming into the year was all about who would beat Adam Blocker. We thought Phil Kraus would be the one to challenge, but really, what a role it's been so far. Blocker has a lot of work to do in the second half of this year to try and close things up. Let's talk about this track then, JP, because what a historic facility it is. It is not in Watkins Glen, New York. Apologies for the typo there. It is about 500 kilometers southwest of Tokyo, Japan, a track built back in 1962, designed, or at least redesigned, by John Hugenholtz, the man behind Zandvoort. It's got everything. Fast, sweeping corners like 130R at the end of the lap. The S's flowing at the start of the lap, and then the Degners, double right-hand corners before you build up into that very tight hairpin midway through the lap.
And this track, of course, designed originally as a test track for Honda, in fact, in the 1960s. And it's one of just two FIA Grade 1 licensed tracks in the world to have a figure 8 layout. With the RB in the Farino circuit, this track has hosted plenty of historic events over the years, from Grand Prix, should say, in the highest levels of World Championship competition in the real world, to some of the top sports car events across the motorsports world. This is a track where it's known for being an iconic facility for a reason here in Japan.
Of course, two facilities in Japan owned by Honda. One, Twin Ring Motegi, was focused on IndyCar, American open wheel racing. This has very much been the home of Formula One in the land of the rising sun. We can't wait to see, though, what our Dallara IRA teams will hold in store for us today. So qualifying is underway. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we work our way through this 10-minute session. Drivers get 4 times lapped, although realistically you're only looking at 2 attempts. You'll go out for lap 1, you'll reset, burn lap 2 and 3 to get a fresh set of boots on the car, and you'll go up and you'll go for lap number 4 again. And as it stands right now, it's close as the top, as you would expect. 900 split Connor Harrington and Adam Blocker. Only 12 times on the board. You also see the gulf in times, 2.6 seconds between the fastest and the slowest so far.
And in final practice, before qualifying, Arjuna, the spread was about 5 seconds for the drivers tonight. So that spread could be very substantial. But a few drivers to keep an eye on as things shuffle out. Not just Joshua Chin, who just jumped up there. Phil Kraus yet to record his first lap flying around the circuit. Matt Taylor was also very quick in practice, within about half a second, in fact. The top driver in practice, that being Kraus with a 138.8.
One thing to consider here at Suzuka is going fast is about finding the rhythm, but the rhythm in qualifying is very different to the rhythm of the race. So the times that you see in qualifying, the drivers that you see at the top, the likes of Harrington, Blocker, and Chin, yes, you'd expect them to be good in the race trim as well. But someone like Adam Frazier, who's not always been the quickest on road courses, well, the only time will tell how he's going to perform here today when it counts in the race. But I tell you what, while we've got just under 5 minutes left in this session, let's ride around with Adam Blocker for a lap here at Suzuka. Roll yourself through the undulation. Let's find out what it's going to take to go fast around this historic facility. The power slide driver crosses the line. Your defending champion has one flying lap to get provisional pole position. Working the way down into turn 1, throw it in, so high commitment through turn 1. On the run into turn 2, clip a little bit of the curb, run yourself out wide, and set yourself up to carry that momentum all the way through the S's. Balancing on the throttle, balancing on the brake, finding that flow is going to be so important. And as you come out of turn 6 on the run into turn 7, get to the right hand side of the track as you sweep up the hill through the Dunlop S's. Use all of the track on offer. That was nice and tidy from Adam Blocker in sector number 1. In towards the Degnas then. Hardened through the first part, but 90 degrees through the second part. You get much more on the anchors. You slow that car down. Then into what we've dubbed here on RaceBot TV, the Kobayashi hairpin. Nice and tidy from Adam Blocker, getting a little bit squirrely as he ran himself into the turn-in point, but ultimately it's not going to be so much of a factor. But realistically, Blocker seems to have thought that lap was not good enough. He's going to try and go again. I don't know if he's really going to have that opportunity, already having burned lap number 3.
I don't know if there's going to be enough time to even start a lap 4 around the track. 4 laps available for qualifying, but as we've seen, some of the drivers trying to be very selective in their choices here. Philip Kraus, for example, after he completed his first lap and set the top time on the board for now in the 1:39.4s, elected to come back down, get himself regathered up for another warm-up, and that's what you see with them trying to let it roll, for example, through Spoon, to try and get powered up, to try and make one more run to try and make sure that pole sticks, because just about all of his competition is on the track currently.
Somewhat surprising to see someone like Andrew Kinsella all the way down in 22nd, although we know qualifying is not necessarily the Canadians' forte, but that gives them a lot of work to do. 2 seconds off the pace. Michael O'Brien has jumped up to 11, immediately pipped by Alexander Van der Sant. But let's try this again. Let's ride around Suzuka with your points leader, the man that's won 6 of 8 races so far in 2022, aiming for pole 4 of the year, Philip Kraus. Let's see what he's going to do on the run into turn number 1, down a gear through the first part of the corner, down to second through the second part, runs a little bit wide, but seems to get on the power nice and early as he slings his way into the S's, using a lot more curb than we saw from Adam Blocker. But that's where we're going to see different drivers electing to use different sort of lines. Down the hill out of turn 6, on the run up into turn 7, again, just look how far to the right hand side these drivers are going to get the optimal entry up the hill, all the way on the run down into turn 8. Sector 1's done, break at the 50 on the run into the first Degna. You can run wide, but you got to be careful about bouncing over the curb. Phil Kraus has got no issues with the curb through the second Degna though, on his run up in towards turn number 11. A little bit tidier on the entry, does push wide, locks the inside left as he breaks into the corner, but now getting onto the power nice and gingerly. He'll run himself through turn 12 on the run down into that double left that is Spoon. So critical to break as late as you can here, carry the momentum through the first part of the corner to set yourself up for the exit of the second part of the corner. Track falls away from you, but that's okay. You'll run yourself out to the curb as far as you dare. Any wheel dropped over the curb, you might get the off track, so watch out for that. And then one of the most famous corners in global motorsport, 130R, nice and tidy, nice and committed, full throttle, foot to the floor from Phil Kraus, and now braking for the final heavy braking zone, the Casio Triangle. A little bit more curb than I think you want, but he got nicely to the inside, and in fact that lap is done. It's not the first time we've seen it. Phil Kraus practices a pit entry.
At full speed nearly, in fact, and right to the lollipop man. On his side, at least, not in our side. But Kraus, regardless there, has a 1/10 of a second buffer over his teammate Connor Harrington. Now it's the matter, though, of can anyone respond in the next 30 seconds? Only a few drivers within range to try it.
Here comes Josh Chin. Do remember, Phil Kraus, 3 poles this year, 1 pole in 2021 to his name as well. He is very much on a roll. 8 wins, 4 poles in 18 races so far. Here comes Joshua Chin on a part-time schedule in 2022. He comes to the line, will improve up to second. It's a private label, Team Hype, 1, 2, and 3.
Exactly what I think that team is going to be looking for in terms of being able to dictate the strategy and the pace at the start of this one. It's going to be a wild one, to say the very least. Off the start, though, when it comes to a track like this in the run to turn 1.
It's our first trip to Suzuka, our first trip to the historic Suzuka circuit. We're ready to go for round 9 of the Lionheart IndyCar series for 2022. Let's run you down through your butt kicker starting grid for the Graphics Grand Prix of Suzuka, presented by Weld My Ride. It's the 5th career pole for Philip Kraus as the dominant force in 2022 looks to truck on in Suzuka. To his outside, his teammate in the private label team hype number 93, 300th, splits Phil Kraus from Joshua Chin. Connor Harrington will line up inside of Adam Blocker. The two drivers had a fun fight on Monday in iRacing official competition. Can they carry that forward here today? What a run from Adam Fraser in qualifying. 3/10 back to be inside of Lionel Kalisto on row number 3. Some very impressive lap times there, while the 2020 Lionheart Retro Series champion Ryan Otis will be inside of the Lionheart Retro Series champion for 2021, Aaron Morgan. Brian Carey and Alexander Van der Zandt for Powerslide Motorsports will complete the top 10, with Matt Taylor and Michael O'Brien, the Madworks Motorsports duo, right behind them. Rolling from 13th is the New York native in Andrew Marquez. Stefan Larkamp will be alongside him in the sister number 62 car, while Chris Fowler and Kite Bommersbach will share row 8. In a tribute livery today, Tyler Groff in the Graphics LPM number 98 will start 17th alongside the Synergy Motorsports Silver number 5 of Brian Beard, while through the top 20 we see Matthias Kraus and Bradley Sexton share row 10. The Candyman will be inside of James Brandt, while Jason Brophy and Mitchell Riggs have some work to do from 23rd and 24th respectively. Chris Lanini and Andrew Kinsella 25th and 26th. Joe Branch and Tony Schowen for Powerslide Motorsports start row 14, while the first of our cars with no lap times on the board is Matt Houston. Robert Malechka will have an end-of-line penalty, which will surely make his race very, very difficult. The qualifying struggles continue for Barrett Rolfe. He's back in the 31st position, while Alex Gouillon, Paul Jenkins, Ron Hacker, and Mike Rigney complete our field here today. Well, it's bound to be an exciting race here, and Justin, what are you expecting here today?
With these drivers here tonight, expecting things to be very intense from the start, for drivers trying to shuffle for position. A few drivers really trying to sort themselves out through the Degner in particular, as well as the first turn. But when it comes to the overall expectations, expecting tire fall-off to be pretty critical. Mixed tire strategy, in fact, but this race starting off in early morning conditions, track going from cool to hot throughout the run.
It's what we see all the time with these IndyCar races. The split tire call, you see Kraus and Harrington on the black tires. Chin is on those red alternate tires, softer, and will really launch at the start of this race. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the Graphics Grand Prix of Suzuka, presented by Weld My Ride. It's a great start from Phil Kraus, immediately fending off the challenge behind. Chin and Harrington slide inside of one another, fighting for second spot, but nice and tidy on the run through turn 1. Looks like all of our cars have gotten underway safely. We fly our way into the S's, fast and furious. Here we are at Suzuka.
Frazier still trying to fight with Aaron Morgan amongst those on the primaries, as off into the grass goes Ryan Otis. Lots of craziness in the heart of the pack, and keep in mind, the drivers on the alternates, 16th and wrecking.
It's a big crash down the field. It involves Chris Fowler, Kite Bommersbach, and you can see them off into the grass. And the gravel, oh, that's a big one. And for Chris Fowler, well, his car has got cursed on the side of it. It does seem as though he is cursed here today. Into the Kobayashi hairpin. The scene of many a dive, and a dive from Adam Blocker, who will spin around Joshua Chin. And the struggles in 2022 continue for Adam Blocker.
Blocker with a broken front wing. Chin absolutely demolished as a result of the incident. Everything imploding at the heart of the pack. Philip Kraus is running away from the pack as a result, so most of the strategy up at the front now is the primary tires. The first driver to get through cleanly on the alternates at this point, since, well, half of them just crashed, is Tyler Graff in 13th.
There you see the damage to the front of Adam Blocker's machine, missing the right front of that front wing. Surely you'll see him down to pit lane to try and stymie the damage, but that is a death knell in his race chances. It might be the death knell in his championship chances as well, but Blocker is electing to stay out there on track. That is a bold call.
Not sure if Blocker knows that the wing is completely gone at this point. He might find out soon, though, with how things are playing out, or he's trying to hope to keep it as long on the track as possible to make sure he's not off cycle. Try and stretch it for a few laps and take the early pit stop call.
Might he be the best friend for the private label duo up the front of the field? That might be the storyline here today. What a first lap that we've had. We apologize for some technical issues. Our graphics are finally up on your screen. You can see the gap that Kraus has, not just to Connor Harrington, but to Adam Blocker and company behind. Say goodbye to Phil Kraus. I think he's on a roller coaster ride with a one-way ticket to victory lane.
Looking to try and build more houses and victory lanes across circuits, across the line arts competitions. Absolutely dictating the strategy early, but looking at this fight still, lots of hard sends. Frazier starting to have a bit of the struggles. You mentioned it from qualifying. Great in the quali for Frazier, dropping back so far in the early going -1 with Van de Sant looking to go +4.
I can attest to it myself. Don't get me wrong, it's so easy to think that you've got the speed in qualifying, so you'll have the speed in the race, but unfortunately that's just not the way that the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. You've got to make sure that you build yourself up for these sort of races, you do the right preparation, and you make sure when it comes crunch time, you are ready to go, and that's what we're seeing from Alexander Van de Sant right now. Look at him put the pressure on the run down into the Casio triangle. Van de Sant slides on past Frazier.
Nice and clean, a little bit deep on the send. Van de Sant able to clear. Here comes O'Brien trying to push on forward. Frazier dropping back and fast like a rock as that 12 machine, this time by in the 142s. Everyone else in the 141 second bracket, all the way to 20th.
Left side of the screen, you can see the tire compound selections as Frazier's now going to lose out to Brian Carey, who will pickpocket Frazier's number 12 there. Graf, Beard, and Kraus, 13th, 15th, and 16th, the first cars to start on the red alternate tires. Talking to the Powerslide Motorsports guys before this race, JP, they thought black, red, black could be the tire strategy to look at. Part of the reason for that is we start in the morning. It's going to get warmer from the start of this race to the checkered flag. Potentially what you can do is make that middle stint on the alternate tires just a little bit shorter.
And that makes sense because you don't know how this could transition when it comes to temperatures for the end of the race with the alternate tires, because that could be the hottest the track will be for this race. We've seen it in the past in some of these events where when they get the early morning starts like this, that the alternates get used and burn off very quickly. And that was before the tire changes last year.
This car is by far, if you ask me, the best that iRacing has to offer now, with the new damage model, with those new tire compounds as well, but it is always factors to be thinking about when it comes to this race, when it comes to how you approach the strategy here. They have gotten themselves somewhat single-filed for the time being, just kind of what I expected. Settle into this race rhythm, let the race come to you. You can see that Phil Kraus has the fastest lap so far, a 47.81. Last time by did a 49.17. Very consistent so far from our points leader. Let's look at what happened then on the start of the race as we finally get a look at the action in the back of the pack. And I'm going to put the blame for that one solely on Chris Fowler.
Fowler was in contention for victory in the Speedway Series earlier this week. You see right there, hard contact, Bomber's back. That send not there, especially even on the first lap. And significantly damages Bomber's back's car. Now that 37 mandatory repairs. Chris Fowler having to come in for a wing change as well. Joshua Chin did the same.
Let's have a look then at what happened here, because this is the one where I think everyone's focus is going to be. I talked about this being the Kobayashi hairpin. We've seen many a hero or zero kind of a move in the past, but I think this one, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. We're not getting the best angles to really call what's going on here. I thought Fowler was squarely to blame for what happened before. I take a look here. Blocker is a little bit aggressive, a little bit late with the move as well. You'd likely put it down to over-aggression from a driver that has struggled in 2022.
You seen the door open up, trying to jump into the door, but Chin was already committed for the diamond. You seeing, as a result, Chin significant damage, and Blocker still is in third despite having half of his front wing missing.
can see, though, Aaron Morgan in that number 24 Graphics LC Motorsports machine has begun to close. The gap to Connor Harrington has started to increase. Remember that when Blocker comes down to pit lane, he's going to spend about 3, 4, maybe 5 seconds longer in the box to get that front wing repaired, but he is holding on quite well for the time being. Left side of the screen, you can see when drivers get on the push to pass system. If you're new to this IndyCar, drivers get 10 usages of that push to pass / push to defend, because I think you use it equally in both scenarios. 70 or 60 to 70 horsepower additionally thrown into the engine. It really helps you push down some of these long straights that we've got. Yes, there are plenty of curbs, but the run to 130R, the run on the pit straight, there's lots of opportunities to time that push to pass to perfection.
And the push to pass today might be very valuable, in particular down the front straightaway is the best opportunity, if not the run from Spoon Curve off to turn 15. That's going to be the critical part of how you time things up today, Arjuna, when it comes to your push to pass usage, I think, because those are your 2 longest straightaways and your best passing opportunities, setting things up, heading towards Casio Triangle for the back straight, or whether the front straightaway to turn 1 with that sweep. And the tough thing is, even though you have the damage we talked about with, say, Blocker, or you have someone that's holding back a little bit here, it's difficult to pass around the majority of the circuit since it's a very technical track outside some of these sections.
I really enjoy a race at Suzuka, and these Indy cars are kind of playing out like I expected. Morgan's a little bit closer this time around on the run into the triangle, but again, will not commit overly just yet. The gap to Phil Krause, at least to Connor Harrington, has grown to 2.5 seconds. It's a smaller gap from Blocker to Harrington than it is from Harrington to Krause. Like I said, sayonara Phil Krause. He's done a smashing job so far, but we're in the very early stages of this race with the amount of delta through the fields from first down to the tail end. Justin, I think traffic will play a big factor here today.
Yeah, aero wash has been huge in the road courses this season, and I think when it comes to that traffic, and that was kind of the point was making, Arjuna, when you get stuck in the aero wash of a competitor ahead of you, whether it's lap traffic or for a position, it's very difficult to follow. And what that means by that is, with the aerodynamics, it can get tighter behind somebody in the corners. You see it right now, for example. Morgan having to put a little bit more wheel into it, losing some time off the corners because he has to let it roll a little bit more, compared to Blocker, who has still, despite his broken wing, has clean air on the front wing that allows him more rotation to be able to power it off the corner.
So working lap 6 of 35. We're expecting the fuel window about 12 to 13 laps, so it gives you some flexibility as to how you're going to use the compound strategy. Remember, you're required to use both compounds of tires in this race. So one stint on the red, one stint on the greens. To be more specific, it's one complete lap. We haven't had a caution like we did during our race at Watkins Glen. Battle for 9th on back continues to intensify as they get on that button to try and throw themselves on the run into the triangle. Adam Frazier is in front of Larkamp, Taylor, and Otis. Not a good start, not just for Adam Frazier, but Ryan Otis down 5 positions, a driver that we know enjoys the road courses.
Well, I mentioned at the start that in the opening lap, during his run to the S, has cut through part of the grass. That cost Otis a lot of the spots, 5 positions alone, Arjuna. But since then, Otis has just not been able to get back into a rhythm, catch up to Taylor, to catch up to Larkamp. And when you lose that rhythm, that is a major issue.
Let's run you down then through today's featured on-board cameras. We've got cameras on all 35 of the cars here today, but 4 very special ones to talk to you about. Aaron Morgan carries the Graphics Esports onboard camera. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com.
Tonight with the SimRace 24/7 onboard camera, it's Adam Blocker. Visit simrace247.com, where sim racing is for everyone.
Jay Brandt carries the Weld My Ride onboard camera, providing welding gear for the automotive world. Visit weldmyride.com.
And in that battle for the top 10, Matt Taylor has the HyperX onboard camera. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
And as mentioned, it's not just those 4, but the entire 35 cars. The beauty of sim racing, you can have cameras everywhere. You can have cameras wherever you want. had a conversation with a commentator who does the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and we showed him a camera that we had at the Circuit de la Sarthe, and you're like, oh, I like that a lot. Let me call the TV director and see if we can get that in for next year's race. Barrett Rolfe and Alex Gouillon, a hellacious incident on the run out of Spoon.
That was in the battle for about 24th. How did that come about? And more contact.
They continue to scrap it out down the pit straight. Frazier loses out to Larkamp. Might also come under fire from Taylor on that run into turn one. The Madworks Motorsports car will have a lob at it, that's for sure. Frazier tries to fight that one back, but the inside reigns supreme. Taylor grabs a spot in the top 10.
A lot of argy-barginess all of a sudden starting to pop up as Frazier's continuing to see the descent from his qualifying spot. But I think the reason we've seen that snap around that you've seen with the collision, I think Barrett Rolfe got really snapped loose. Possibly weight jacker maybe, or possibly rather with the foot. Just a little bit too much on the throttle is the better way to put it with the road courses, is the better term to put it, when it comes to Rolfe, and just Gouillon right at the wrong spot there on that exit.
Like we mentioned during our butt kicker pre-race show, you have in-car adjustments, front and rear anti-roll bars. No weight jackers, that's only on the ovals. Look at this five-car train that's forming behind them as well. Tyler Graf, Andrew Marquez, Brian Beard, all very, very close. Let's go ahead and pick up what happened then to Gouillon and Rolfe. Rolfe's qualifying struggles have put him in a bad spot, and as he rounds himself down the hill through turn 14, gets a little bit loose, slides back into the path of Gouillon, who had nowhere to go.
As mentioned, just started snapping around Apex Arjuna, Apex off. That's enough for him to slide around. The tough thing for Gouillon is he picked the normal line, was committed to his mark, but right there, just the overcorrection, trying to save the car. Bad timing for that to happen for Rolfe.
So 2 Ascari Autosport machines are out now. Kite Bomber's back after lap 1 incident is out. So now Barrett Rolfe, as well as Alex Gouillon in that 08 machine. Chris Fowler has managed to get back out onto track, although he is down in 32nd position. Here comes the snake back and forth. Taylor will have a look to the inside on the push to pass and gets on through up into 9th. Ryan Otis gets past Adam Frazier as well.
And the interesting thing when it comes to Taylor, we talked about how quick he was in practice in terms of his consistency in marks there. Qualifying just couldn't nail it down, it seems. And since then, the 8 trying to still recover, is in a solid position right now. But the tough thing is 12 seconds back to the leader, 2 seconds back to Brian Carey to close on up. The other interesting thing, who's also in this drafting pack, Tyler Graf, who is leading on that alternate tire strategy for those starting on that red wall tire compound.
Still very curious how it's going to play out there. Again, left side of the screen, you can see those options as Larkamp a little bit deep opens the door for Ryan Otis to try and get the push to pass working on the run down into Spoon. Now has got the horsepower advantage, does not necessarily have the speed advantage just yet. Frazier's got a great look of what's going on in front of him. Otis burns the push to pass, does not get on through.
Not what Otis may have wanted right there, but at the same time, the push to defend might have been a possibility with Frazier also gaining some momentum. Tough thing is, they are losing touch to Matt Taylor's draft here to help them down the straightaways. Keep an eye on that, but the pit window starting to open up. A few of the drivers indicating over the radio they want to come in.
Matt Houston is boxed already. A car not involved in any shenanigans, at least that we saw, so maybe that's the indication that he has elected to change the tire strategy. Haven't seen anyone in this leading group come in just yet, although because they are on the primary tire, you would not expect them to do so. It is going to be Bradley Sexton, Jason Brophy, and Jay Brandt who all come in. 3 cars that started on, guess what? The alternate tire.
And now this is where that opening of the strategy floodgates possibly comes on in the fuel window for today. The projections for drivers, 12 to 13 laps. Drivers expected to be a 2-stopper regardless on how things play out on the gas here. Try and slice and dice it through the pack. It's going to be the intriguing mark of how will the drivers on the primary wall tires elect to go. Does Blocker have that lengthy stop for the wing change? Because the interesting thing is, he's been nearly matching the leader's times despite what we're seeing here.
Well, matching I think is being a bit too kind. He's been a couple of tenths off. Fastest lap for Phil Kraus, a 47.81. Fastest lap for Blocker is a 41.384, which he only did last time by, which indicates to me that he's now understood the balance of this car and is getting the pedal down and really starting to push its limits a little bit more. But it could just be a visual thing. We'll only find out through the first cycle of pit stops. There, though, is the man in control. 3.5 seconds clear. Now, the gap in qualifying was what, less than a tenth of a second? No one in 2022, other than Alexander Van der Sant, has had an answer for the pace of Philip Kraus, because the only other time that Phil Kraus has not won a race, discounting the wheel-to-wheel melee that we saw between him and Alexander Van der Sant, that was fantastic, was when Kraus made a mistake on the streets of Long Beach to gift Adam Blocker a victory.
Yeah, remember that time where it was basically that fight coming out of the pit street sequences and that lockup coming up to the middle of the sectors. Pit stops that are away for Kraft and Beard. But you're right when it comes to Kraus's pace. He's been nearly untouchable throughout the season, more so on the road courses this campaign, where he has been lightning fast. He's been performing to the top peak performance I think we expect from the driver, who has a fan base who likes to see him build houses in Victory Lane wherever he goes.
He's having the type of year that you only dream about, a season somewhat comparable to what we saw from Adam Blocker in 2021. Let's get a look at a RaceBot TV replay for something that's happened to the Ron Hacker car. Whoa, now, was that clumsy by him? Was it clumsy by Brophy? Well, the end result is only pain for Ron Hacker's 21.
Something looked off before that contact even.
He's going slow.
Yeah, something's up with Ron Hacker, and see right there, just a tiny tap, and bye-bye.
Almost looks as though he got loose before the tiny bit of contact. So, yeah, it does not look like that car was in healthy condition. That is for sure. And that is unfortunate for Ron Hacker, who was just looking to survive in this race. Tony Schowen has had a trip through the gravel. You can see just a little bit too much speed through Spoon. Actually, a good thing it didn't snap loose on him like it did with Barrett Rolfe. A little bit later in the corner, yes, but if you snap loose, you overcorrect. There's a one-way ticket to the barriers that is awaiting for you, and in this case, at the very least, Tony Schowen recovers with no damage to his car, maybe only damage to his ego. It is very much opened up for those cars that have yet to come down pit lane. There are some groupings of those that have already boxed. Brian Beard leads a train around that sees Jason Brophy, Tyler Groff, Josh Chin, and Jay Brandt all in contention as Joshua Chin tries to rebound from the lap 1 contact.
The tough thing when it comes to the Chin situation is, remember, he's already on lap 10 of a stint after having to come in for the wing change from the crash. So now will be the intriguing part of, how does he try and play the strategy here? Because right now he's very tight in some of these margins, possibly, on how this plays out for the rest of the run.
Tyler Groff has the door slammed shut on him by the neon yellow machine of Brian Beard. Jason Brophy got very, very wide through the mid part of the S's. Has cost himself a bit of time on the margin to Tyler Groff. Maybe the message going over the radio will be for Josh Chin to try and get on through, but Chin will owe us a pit stop fairly shortly as we work lap 12 of this race. Chin has been on track for 10 laps so far today. Brophy, well, pushing the limits through Degner 1. I said you could do that. You don't necessarily want to be doing that in race trim. Van der Sant all the way to the inside of Lionel Kalisto through the Casio Triangle. Van der Sant has done this once before. Will try and set it up out of the corner, but unfortunately runs into the back of the 97 machine, who comes straight to pit road.
Looked like Van der Sant wanted to pit there too for a moment, but just couldn't get it turned hard enough to be able to make it in without hitting the pit wall. So Van der Sant has to try and stretch it out here this extra lap after trying to battle it out right there.
I think maybe that was one of those situations where I'll do the opposite of what the car in front does. So Van der Sant thought he would pit, but instead will extend and elongate for one additional lap. The gap up to Aaron Morgan, though, 3.1 seconds. Morgan doing a great job, showing some very impressive pace here today. Lap 13 then, right around the edge of the pit stop window. Will we see Phil Kraus into pit road this time by? Will those behind him follow him in? Josh Chin, I can tell you, has boxed this time by.
And I've noticed for this round there's been a little bit of an update to the private label team hype paint schemes. They've added lightning bolts.
Yes.
Just very lightly into the back end of the paint scheme to add to that palette. To say that these cars have been lightning fast today is an understatement with Kraus and Harrington.
Actually, I don't think these are the new... it might be the new private label Team-Hype paint. There are new paints for this team. iLivery's won. At iLivery's has done a great job with everything. Basically, he's touched in the last couple of years or so. A VCO Simi Hall of Fame inductee. And I'll be candid, I prefer the old private label Team-Hype paints. I've told the same to some of the members of the team. But here they come onto pit road. Phil Kraus will be the first to box. Less dramatic than the one that we saw during qualifying. Connor Harrington, nice and tidy as well.
And the buffer about 4.5 seconds nearly for Kraus entering the pit lane this time. Moment of truth for drivers like Blocker as well. How does this play out now with them trying to go between 49 and 50 miles per hour at the moment? We'll see if the wing gets adjusted there as is up on the jacks.
Now, we'll only see with the pit stop time. There goes Kraus. Harrington rolls as well. Blocker has not had a long stop, so it would appear as though it was just a visual bug here on our side, being told that it had damage, but in reality, Adam Blocker got away with that lap 1 incident, and we haven't heard from race control. You remember what happened at Silverstone. Blocker and Morgan came to blows through Village on the opening lap of the race at Silverstone. Blocker got a drive-through penalty for that, got a drive-through penalty for subsequent contact as well. This time around, doesn't seem as though race control has intervened.
Now, it's been a crazy, crazy type of race, to say the very least, at the moment, with how this has played out. But at the very least for Blocker, solid job to be able to bounce ahead for the time being, hold on to the top 3 on the racetrack, and gain 3 seconds on Morgan and company. Of note, even though Van de Sande went a lap further than it looked like he intended, he still passed Callisto after the pit stop cycle.
Look at the left side. You can see those tire options for the second stint of the race. Blocker, Van de Sande, Callisto, Carey, and Larkamp, as well as Marquez inside of the top 15, have all switched over to the alternate compound tire. Kinsella, the only car yet to box, but it means that at the end of this race, we'll see exactly what's going to happen with those machines, with the strategies, how the tires hold on. You'd expect this to be a slightly shorter stop for shorter stint for Adam Blocker, and that's played out in the pit stop time. Just over 9 seconds in the box for Kraus and Harrington, under 8 for Adam Blocker.
And keep in mind, because the incident was a lap 1 incident, that is a post-race review for the situation when it comes to that contact. Have to keep an eye on that down in the big picture. By the way, Kinsella, the last driver this cycle to pit, has come on in. So Kraus to the lead again. 4.5 seconds up.
Getting to the halfway marker of this race, Kinsella with a short stop as well as he switches to the alternate tire. 7.6 seconds stationary for him. We're going to take a look at something that happened to him as well a couple of laps before his pit stop. So coming down into the triangle in a battle with, I believe that's Matthias Kraus. Oh, he just blows past the corner. That's what happens there.
We'll have to take another look at that one and how badly this was the Casio triangle. You see how much he's trying to push. Nearly gets an off track right there. Has an opportunity. Sends it up in the brakes. Too much. Just a little bit too much.
That wasn't a Tokyo drift, that's for sure, but lost out then. Oh, and you saw the healthy dose of oversteer he got getting onto the power as well. That was suboptimal, to be quoting Lewis McLeod. He's come out in 15th position, which, when you look at the situation of the race, JP, is wonderful. He has gained 11 positions from where he started. Similar for Malechko's plus 16, Brophy and Sexton side by side through the hairpin.
Better pull for Bradley Sexton, though, in the preferred line, the right side of the racetrack. Brophy trying to sort things on out, not looking patient, though, in how things are playing out. You need to be smart in these types of battles. Again, this is for 19th. Still, you need to keep it clean, regardless here. Meanwhile, Jay Brand is doing Tokyo drifting behind him.
There is at least someone that is espousing the virtue that is the Tokyo drift, as Adam Blocker puts in the fastest lap, closes on Connor Harrington, immediately stolen. We're going to have a look at a RaceSpot TV replay of something that happened to Bradley Sexton that explains why, I guess, he was back in that battle with Jason Brophy, just on the curb through Degner 1. You can see him kind of bottom that car out, loses 1, loses 2, and then has to fight with Jason Brophy through the hairpin section. Explains why that battle was really going on. There's the gap, though, from Adam Blocker to Connor Harrington. It's maybe 6 car lengths as they dive into Degner 1.
And the interesting thing has been Harrington has been falling back towards Blocker as the run has gone on. Now within the 2/10 is Blocker. And right there, an opportunity on the outside. Blocker trying to set things up with him on the better advantage. Keep in mind, it's the red wall tires for Blocker, the primaries for Harrington.
Both drivers on the push to pass. Harrington a little bit earlier. Outside line for Spoon can work with the extra grip. Connor Harrington slams the door shut on Adam Blocker. This battle is by no means done, but what this might do at the end of the race is allow Connor Harrington to hold this position through the next cycle of the race. He goes defensive on the button once more on the run down to 130R. This is flat to the floor, ultra committed, and Harrington forces Blocker off the track.
And I think now a little bit of the give and take kind of got burned up with the contact before, or Harrington can burn up his rear tires missing the corner. These drivers are racing like it's the last lap for the race lead at the moment, rather than the battle for second at the halfway point.
And look at that, Harrington jinks into the pit road exit, will fade as well to hold on to that position, but surely the tempers are flaring if you're Adam Blocker. Kalisto's made a mistake that has dropped him behind Brian Carey. It's starting to pick up, the tempo is starting to pick up. We thought it would settle down, but no, it's really starting to intensify.
This is now to where it could get a little bit too dicey here. Remember, the contact with Blocker was one of the private label team hype machines earlier. That is a possible factor here with how defensive this has been. But it's also huge for Harrington's strategy here because he has to know that the tire is going to fall back in his direction by the end of the run based on the trends this season. Hence why it's important to hold him off, because then he's going to be on the reds for the next run likely.
These drivers have started to be a bit more loose with the push to pass, but not such an issue this time by as they work their way through sector 2 on the run down into turn 13. Blocker looks one way then the other. It's all about the exit though, down the hill through Spoon. If he can get a good run here, get on the push to pass nice and early, the door will present itself. He's got a great slingshot off the corner. Neither driver on the push to pass this time around. Morgan goes to try and close the gap to this fight further up through the field. It's again the outside line for Blocker, not where he wants to be. He'll try and maybe have a lunge on the run into the triangle, but again, still too far back. He'll throw it deep under the brakes though. The red tire's working a treat. He overcooks the corner. Harrington continues to bleed time to Phil Krause.
This is getting a little bit absurd with how this is playing out halfway through the race this time around for these drivers, mind you. To start lap 18, here comes Blocker.
Uses that push to pass and will try and blow on through. Harrington again will fight this one back. He is Phil Krause's best friend. Up and under attempted from Blocker. Harrington is defending for his life right now.
Huge amounts of time. 2 seconds lost in this fight in the past lap and a half alone. Harrington not wanting to give this up. Blocker still keeping it pretty calm in Sector 1, but Sector 3, he's been really intensifying the pressure on Harrington. Not looking as calm as we've seen from him in the past.
And do remember, if he does have to come down to the box earlier, which you'd expect for him on these red tires, he might come out into traffic, so that will be playing into his mind as well. Again, defensive from Harrington, allowing Blocker to really set the corner up. Harrington runs a bit deep and compromises Blocker. Again, the status quo continues to remain as it is. The gap between Krause and Harrington, almost 7 full seconds.
Yeah, something's got to give here, and Blocker trying to pressurize mistakes, trying to force some more, and nearly turns Harrington for it.
Now Harrington got a bit loose, and Blocker takes advantage. Well, that is just pushing the limits a little too far. Contact as they both went for the same bit of tarmac. Blocker gets in front for the time being through 130R. He secures the lock on the position, but now with 4 laps almost burned trying to get through, those tires will be very much past their sell-by date.
And now it's the question, can Harrington absolutely try and bounce back? keep in mind, Morgan and Van de Sande are coming from this. They are within about a second and a half, 2 seconds now, and having a great shot to battle for second. That's how hard these two have been fighting, as here we go.
Harrington, a bit deep through the corner, avoids running into the back of Blocker, avoids losing time as well. That was best case scenario for what was moments away from going underway. My word, JP, this is a race.
This is a very physical race, to say the least, but Harrington really starting to slide back all of a sudden here. But the main thing, again, you mentioned it in particular, how will this fare out for Blocker at the end of the run? Because he really burned up those tires trying to make these passes work. And here's the thing, too. With all the bumping and banging, how does this play out for the incidents? Because there is a 20 incident point limit. Harrington currently may be close to that.
Sorry, I was doing some mental math. I think you're probably more concerned about that if you're Adam Blocker, if we're being honest.
Exactly, too.
Yeah.
Both of them, if anything.
Can see they're running a bit wide through Spoon. I don't think that's going to be an off track, though. If you're new to iRacing, the incident limit works from anywhere from a 1 to a 4. You can get a 0 if you make light car contact. If you go off the track, you get 1 point. Significant car contact is 2, and well, reserved for the biggest incidents. 4 incident points will be added if you really make some contact, like we saw with Blocker and Josh Chin on lap number 1. So do keep that in your mind. I see a request in our YouTube chat room. Play the entire battle. It was fantastic, JP. That was about as aggressive as you can get without wrecking some good, respectful driving from both sides.
Well, they nearly wrecked each other 3 times. So it got close and got really boiling over towards the end, but still, I don't know if it's going to be over quite yet. If anything, it might go the other direction depending on how Harrington tries to keep up here with Blocker. The tough thing is, he is bleeding time for days. Blocker now with the clean air. Last time by 7/10 quicker.
Blocker could come to the box in maybe 2 laps time to get to the end on the black primary tire. Still seems to have time. He's gaining on Phil Kraus as well on the alternate, so he'll keep that in mind. He'll only come into pit road when he knows those tires have very much started to give up the ghost. Let's get a look at another RaceSpot TV replay. Attrition starting to play a factor. This is Joe Branch off into the grass, through the bumps, through the bounces, and into the wall goes the number 28 machine.
Just too quick coming out of the S curves, in particular to the Dunlop curb. You see right there, just too much into the runoff space. Couldn't get back into the surface, right across the sand, and by that point, you're just a passenger, hoping you don't slam into those walls. And unfortunately for Branch, he hit the walls, and Branch is done for the night.
Tony Showen as well has retired from this race, so 35 has become 29. All our cars are still on the lead lap, albeit for the time being. You can see the movers and shakers so far, and when I was talking to Robert Malechka in the build-up to this race, I basically told him an end-of-line penalty at Suzuka, that's just about as bad as an end-of-line penalty at the Nashville Superspeedway. But what we've seen from Malechka has been patient, and patience has been key. He's worked himself up 16 positions to get into 14th spot. We watch, though, as Ryan Otis sails on past Stefan Larkamp.
Nice move by Otis as he tries to get his footing back. Remember, we talked about Ryan Otis earlier, where the former Retro Series champion was really struggling after the mistakes from the launch for tonight. Now, seems to be finally getting comfortable, finally settled in with those primary tires, to get himself into a rhythm to be able to hit the flows of the track, because you lose that rhythm for a few laps, it is a massive time swing, to say the very least.
Loving Suzuka. Didn't love Nashville that much. I am willing to be honest when I like and don't like a track. Nashville wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Doesn't mean it was a good race. This, though, loving it. The only thing that you could maybe criticize is the fact that Phil Kraus is a man on a mission right now and is starting to increase the gap to Adam Blocker. Those tires for Blocker starting to fall off the cliff.
Yes, still 6/10 quicker than Harrington, but only a 10th quicker than Philip Kraus. So Blocker just hitting that brick wall for progression. Larkamp, you've been following along with him in the 62 machine. Also hitting that brick wall per se as well after that pass by Otis. 142.5 after the move last time by. So a lot of the drivers on the alternate wall tires really dropping back. Van de Sant was close with Morgan before. That separated out. Kalisto is falling back into the clutches of Matt Taylor, for example. A lot of the drivers really feeling the effects of the tire, where some drivers seen it by as much as 3/10, some of them a full half a second at least, compared to their competition.
Taylor a look to the inside, but with a fixed setup amongst everyone, there's no aero differences here, so the push-to-pass can only do so much. You've got to get the run. You've got to hope for a mistake for the car in front. Kalisto really coming under fire now in this battle for 7th position. It's two MadWorks Motorsports machines stacked up behind Kalisto. O'Brien in the mix as well.
Keep in mind those drivers.
Kalisto losing it by himself. O'Brien splits the difference. Taylor survives. My, oh my, we saw the pressure, and Kalisto crumbles in the face of Matt Taylor, who seems to have some damage.
Yeah, for Matt Taylor, really had to lock up the brakes. If there's damage, it's very slight on the right front end plate. But it could have been much worse for the 8. He had to go full lockup and just avoided the wall to avoid slamming into the side of that car.
You can see, just got loose. Taylor does a great job, locks it down in the nick of time to avoid the one-way trip into the wall, into the garage as well. We'll get another look, and we'll ride on board with Michael O'Brien. I don't really think he lifted too much, but whatever he did, he made it through safely.
Well, the side of his car says the word crash. He didn't get into one there. Good awareness to be able to dodge that trouble up in the road. Speaking of drivers up the road, Blocker and Van de Sant in. The window is open for the alternates.
Thought it would be an early box. Is this the right time for Blocker to make his way back onto the primary compound of tire? Time will only tell. Kalisto boxes as well. You saw how much his rear tires were starting to feel the plane. Blocker 9.3, so the shortest stop he had in stint 1. It's returned the favor now. We should see Kraus, Harrington, and Morgan, all those cars at the front that have yet to come down pit lane, maybe with an 8-second stop this time around, JP.
And that will be the big thing, partly. It's also going to be intriguing how the fall-off differences are, because the track condition we talked about, where it was fairly cool coming into the green flag for tonight's race. The increase temperature-wise for the track up 5 degrees Fahrenheit since the drop of the green flag, and since practice about 10 degrees. But those temperatures, they're about to pick up for some other battles or across the track with 12 to go coming up this time.
The sun is rising in Japan, but the sun is beginning to set on this inaugural race at Suzuka for the Lionheart IndyCar Series. You're watching RaceSpot TV and coverage of the Graphics Grand Prix of Suzuka, presented by Weld My Ride. The final cycle of pit stops, the run to the checkered flag, coming up next on RaceSpot TV.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome back to RaceSpot TV and coverage of the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series. We're live at Japan's premier motorsport facility for the first time as we are underway for the Graphics Grand Prix of Suzuka presented by Weld My Ride. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined as always by the one and only Justin Prince. It's been an enthralling 24 laps in the book so far. We're coming down to the final 10. We're coming down to that final cycle of pit stop. And JP, Adam Blocker's on a slightly different pit strategy to those at the front of the field, but crucially, he has come out in clean air.
That's the big thing right now, to be able to keep the momentum forward. Last time by a 140.5. Blocker is flying, setting some of his better lap times in this race. Main thing will be, how will the pit cycle fare out for Kraus, Harrington, and company, because Blocker is trying to do everything he can to try and recover after losing so much ground early, as Morgan and company expect them to come in this time. Morgan already in.
So watch the gap to Morgan then. That will be our first indication of maybe how far away we expect Blocker to be in comparison to Harrington. I think that's really the battle track. Here's an incident wall for Paul Jenkins, who gets it wrong on the exit of 130R and miraculously does not run into the tire barriers. Right on board with this number 35 machine. You just see runs, oh, it doesn't even run wide, just very, very loose midway through the corner. And that, JP, is another reason why this track is so tricky.
Takes so much preparation and practice to learn this facility as well, to make sure, say, you know those pit deltas, because that's a question I think a lot of drivers need to know. It's about 27 to 29 seconds tonight based on the amount of fuel you put in, Arjuna, and that will be critical to keep in mind for the battle with Harrington and Blocker, for example, for second.
Have to factor in as well the time to get down to pit road speed, to get back up to racing speed once you release yourself from the limiter. So maybe around 30, 32, 33 seconds is the number that we're looking at. We'll only find out, though, in about a lap or so's time, as we're within those final 10 laps. We wait to see when Phil Kraus, Connor Harrington will come down to the box for the final time today. The gap between Kraus and Harrington is considerable, 8.5 seconds, and Phil Kraus will be the first to box for the final time this race of the drivers switching to the primary compound of tire.
Well, they are on the Blackwell tires currently. That's the critical thing. But now Harrington also into the lane. Now it will be the tricky part for the rest of the way. Where does that one car cycle? Because Blocker was coming and closed in a few seconds before the pit window opened for him. Kraus already off and away. A quick stop.
So it's going to be a big gap then to Adam Blocker. Well, that is for sure 7.8 in the box for Phil Kraus, as expected, slightly shorter. What is it going to be for Connor Harrington there? There goes Blocker, sails on past. You've got to remember, though, Harrington has the preferred compound of tire for a short run. We still have 9 laps to go, though. If Blocker can frustrate Harrington as much as Harrington did earlier in this race, don't count out Blocker from holding on to second.
Here's the tough thing for Harrington. Remember, he struggled past about lap 7 on the run with the primary tires. How will that stack up with the alternates? And remember, the track temperature, the hottest it's been now in the race, up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit around this circuit.
I think you got to watch for Aaron Morgan closing as well. I said Kraus was the first to box on that compound of tire. It wasn't, in fact. Morgan came in earlier, even earlier with the likes of Matt Taylor, so we'll get a good glimpse as to what the fall off is going to be. And look at how close Morgan is close to Harrington. Of course, the tires for Morgan up to temperature. Harrington not looking forward, looking backwards instead.
You mentioned that issue for Kraus when it came to Long Beach. Remember, that was after the tire compound switch on cold tires. Harrington really tight on the cold tires, it looks like. Morgan now with that lap put on and the pressure's built up right now on those tires, really sailing as he tries to close. Harrington already going for push to defend.
Take a look at the left side of the screen. You can see the push-to-pass usage so far this race. Remember, 10 allotments of the 60 to 70 horsepower spurt that you get when you hit that go fast button. Harrington has burned through 6 so far. Morgan, Van der Sant, Blocker all with 5 left to use. They're relatively equal, only 2 real opportunities to use them down this main straight, and likely the run out of Spoon Curve. You could, if you wanted, try one out of Dunlop on the run up to the Degnos. You could try one out of the Kobayashi hairpin on the run into Spoon Curve. There are opportunities. You got to set yourself up. It's as simple as that, and the gap is closed. Blocker has slipped backwards very quickly. Harrington and Morgan right in his dirty air.
That's with the 4-lap difference on the tires and the faster short-run tire, absolutely. Same with those push-to-passes. Several others who are also trying to gain ground, like O'Brien and a few others. How do we use them? But with this fight, expect the boxing gloves to come out. Ding, ding, it's time for round 3.
Gloves come off in this sort of a situation. It's a bare-knuckle brawl. Harrington's going to go the long way around, will set up the exit of the corner, and surely get on the push-to-pass. In fact, he doesn't need it. He's got such a great exit off the corner that he gets on the button so late, he's already cleared himself. Blocker tried to defend, but did it too late. Harrington's on through. Blocker has got to try and fight this one back. Harrington sends it deep once more.
Blocker trying to keep up. That's the tough thing now. He's on the slower compound of this part of the run, and already seen that difference. Harrington has used several push-to-passes this lap. He knows how important it is to break away, but Blocker has that advantage by a size of a margin now for later on in this run.
So coming to 8 to go for these drivers, 7 to go, excuse me, as Kraus goes faster yet. A 1:39.106. Incredible speed. Michael O'Brien gets past Brian Carey in his charge up through the field, 8.8 seconds back from Alexander Van der Sant. You have to assume that's all that O'Brien's going to be able to get. Watch for Ryan Otis to try and get past Carey as well. Carey, a sitting duck on that black primary compound of tire. Gap between Harrington and Blocker already up to 0.8 of a second.
And growing with that clean air on the front wing of Harrington. Harrington turning some of the quickest laps of his race. Main reason he didn't have a personal best? Well, he had an off track in that battle for the pass, but don't forget about Aaron Morgan and all of this, who's also on that same compound and is looking to fly now. The tough thing is, trying to get around Blocker. He hasn't finished in front of Blocker in a while on a road course.
Well, remember what happened between Blocker and Morgan at Silverstone. Not once, but twice. They came together.
Before that,
no, I know, but my point being, do remember there's some tension between these two drivers. Morgan was very frustrated, thought he had the pace to challenge for overall victory at Silverstone, didn't even get the chance, cleared out, and not even half a lap into the race. 9/10 back, almost a second back is Morgan from Blocker, and the gap from Harrington has opened up to almost 1.2 seconds. If Blocker's got any chance of fighting for second, he needs the tires for Harrington to fall off, and fall off now.
and that's the huge thing right now. The thing is, the fall, if we talked about this, usually shows up in about 3 laps from now. Not right now. He's only 3 laps in. Morgan 4 laps in. So that fall off might not give Blocker too much time here to be able to try and get a pass back, to be able to finish in second, one of his better runs of the season, since picking up some momentum early with some of the struggles in the victory earlier in this year.
Ryan Otis past Carey, who's now lost 2 positions. Sees Taylor Frazier all lurking behind him as well. Frazier's recovered back up after what was a difficult start to the race for him. Looking like he will gather a top 10 finish, at least for today. As into turn 1, they go once more. 35 cars took the green, 28 still out there on track. Might see a bit of lap traffic in the form of Chris Lanini as well as Chris Fowler start to play a bit of a factor. Not necessarily for the race lead. It might be interesting, though, if they affect that battle for second spot.
Still about 11 seconds to buffer for that before it becomes a panic. But the main thing to consider when it comes to 27, 28, Fowler, Lanini, they are battling for position. So that may become a little bit of a bottleneck effect there. Same can be said about this battle you've been seeing on screen here, for example. You have Matt Taylor trying to battle it out for 8th position on the red wall tires. Carey sticking it out on the primaries. Ian Frazier looking to try and be on the prowl. Here is Frazier. Remember how good he was in qualifying?
He's back on the red tires. Maybe that's where he feels a little bit more comfortable. The way that the tires grip, the way they fall off as well, different between those compounds. And so sometimes you just prefer one over the other. It's as simple as that. Taylor on the push to pass, quite late on the run out of Spoon on the entry into 130R. I think trying to close the carry, has only 2 usages left. Carry has 8. He's got a lot more to play with in this battle. It's all about rationing them out. How do you want to use them? When do you want to use them? Carry, not the tidiest through the first part of the Casio triangle, but nice and smooth on the exit as they climb down the hill, where we saw one of the Toyotas in qualifying have an almighty shunt because of the wind that was blowing across the track. No such dramas so far for these drivers. Working their way into turn 1 with 5 to go. Carey has got 5 laps to hold on to this, what would be an 8th place finish for him, getting back on form. That is for sure. Now, for second spot, have we seen the crossover point already blow past us? Because the gap is down to 1.1 seconds. Blocker looks like he's on the move.
I think the answer is starting to lean towards yes. Within a lap, I think it's a more so a yes with how this is trending. Remember that crossover point? Guess which lap is next to end off this cycle, on this cycle rather. Lap 5 of the stint. So Harrington is approaching that crossover 2/10 quicker last time than Blocker. Blocker now looking more confident. The main thing will be, how tough will it be to pass Harrington, because we've seen how difficult it was the first time and the second time.
Morgan trying to stick on them, but he's 1.8 back, so the real indication that the crossover point is there. Since we have 4 to go, let's have a quick look at, well, shenanigans further back. Brian Beard almost causing a big old incident with Mitchell Riggs and the sole surviving Ascari Autosport machine as they come into Spoon. Beard's out of push to pass. Riggs still has 1 to burn. We'll have a look to the inside on those red tires. Cannot get the pass done, but we want to focus on Tyler Graf in that special tribute livery for today's race. He is, Moser Racing driver profile, coming to almost 100 career starts in this Lionheart IndyCar Series. 28 top 10s, 6 top 5s, has come close to victory on a road course before. It was during our double header at Belle Isle. 2 races back to back. He finished second in one of those. Graf, consistently in all 3 of our competitions, has shown us adaptability, is also a driving force behind the scenes, producing all of the graphics work for the Lionheart Racing Series.
Some very beautiful graphics, we'll say, when it comes to those cars, especially when it comes to his machine as well tonight as well. That's the Dan Weldon Foundation machine, and it's a car we've seen from Run the Past. And special design for this race based in Japan. You see with the fonts as well, and the side pods of the machine. A lot of work put in by Graf, whether it's for race organizations or racing organizations amongst Lionheart's competitions, or whether it's when it comes to the race cars on the track.
So the crossover point seems to have swung in the favor of the primary tires. Blocker is now 6/10, almost half a second closer to Connor Harrington. Brian Carey has pulled an advantage to Matt Taylor. So as we come to 3 laps to go, the fight is well and truly on.
Ding, 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 ding. How about round 4? Here comes the snake, with Harrington using a lot of those push-to-passes earlier on this run. Now it's to where Blocker can be on the offensive.
I don't think it's so much about the push to passes anymore. I think it's more about Connor Harrington holding on to the tires, making sure he does not present the opportunity for Blocker to have a look, for Blocker to have a go. It's as simple as that, as they wind themselves up and down through the S's, through Dunlop they sweep on the run up to the Degners, gap down to 0.4 of a second.
And I'm not liking what I'm seeing when it comes to Harrington's grip levels. He's really struggling in the very technical parts of the track. The S's nearly went off the track a couple times. That is where Blocker is really gaining with those Black Bolt tires now. Here's a perfect example. Lock up for Harrington. Not so much for Blocker. He nearly hit him.
They both did not get the greatest of runs to the hairpin, that is for sure, but you can tell the momentum, the pendulum has swung back in favor of the Powerslide Motorsports driver. You have to remember as well, Blocker is going to be under investigation for the shenanigans on the start. What will that have, as Alexander Van der Sande has had a big old moment down at the hairpin, has got considerable damage, and that is frustration for the 96 car, who'll be back down to pit road shortly this time around.
Broken nose means mandatory damage repairs. Bad luck for the 96. Blocker is looking for the move, though, for second with 2 to go. Not there. Harrington shut the door just in time.
There's a lot of snaking and weaving on the part of both drivers. You got to be careful on the run into the braking zones. You don't want to get in trouble. Connor Harrington burns his penultimate push to pass. Still has 1 to go after this. Blocker's got some in reserve. 2 laps to go at Suzuka. Surely Harrington has just got to survive for these 2 laps at Suzuka.
And the main points he's got to make sure to execute. The S's, this is where he's really struggled. As well, the run through Spoon Curve. He's gone wide nearly a couple times there. Blocker really settling in on this section. Not able to take advantage, though, with the white bobbles because of that air wash. Not a passing opportunity usually here either, but a good setup for this part of the racetrack onward.
Down through Degner 2 they come. Look how close Blocker is. Will he try a move that only Kamui Kobayashi could dream of? Not going to be given the opportunity. Harrington will cover the inside, will try and hug it tight, and on the exit of the corner, it's nice and tidy from Harrington, but Blocker with those rear tire grip advantage has got a monster of a launch on the run down into Spoon. Blocker will look to the outside line. The place you don't want to be will back out of it for now. Harrington again slides himself deep. Blocker try to look. My oh my, coming to 1 to go. It's still raging on for second as Phil Kraus has cleared himself clear for the race lead.
There goes the push to pass for Harrington. Blocker now using it a little bit later. Looking like Blocker wants that extra bit of speed. More so for the Casio Triangle.
Now, is this going to give him the overspeed on the run into the braking zone? Again, a bit of a squeeze from both drivers. Blocker's there, and Blocker turns Connor Harrington. The second bit of contact for Adam Blocker with a private label Team Hype machine. The first one I put squarely on Adam Blocker. This time by, we're going to need a couple of looks at it, JP, but you have to think it's likely more racing incident. Blocker was definitely there.
Tempers building up on the final lap now of the race. After so many battles all race, Blocker tried to hug the curbs, ends up getting contact. Meanwhile, for Van de Sant, what happened to him? Well, that's a self-mistake coming into the Armco barrier, coming out of one of the Dagners. But for Blocker, he's got the wing issue again.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's 1 lap to go. It's as simple as that. Let's grab a couple of looks if we can. This is not going to be the lap. We're going to have to try and get it up. We got half a lap to go. Let's not focus on the controversy. Let's focus on the good, which is another dominant performance from Phil Kraus.
Now, while everybody's been having a boxing match with and without gloves for second, Philip Kraus has been having a nice Wednesday night drive, to say the least. Quickest car on the track, very calm.
So let's get a quick look. We're only going to get 1 look at it here at the RaceSpot TV replay machine because Phil Kraus is coming to take another victory in 2022. From up above, you can see Blocker as a nose there, and Harrington just tries to turn in. I do think that is something Connor Harrington did to himself. And while one private label team hype car suffers in the final stages, one continues to dominate. Phil Kraus wins race 7 of 9 in 2022. He is marching to the title. He conquers at Suzuka to win by almost 14 full seconds.
What a day for Philip Kraus. What a run for Philip Kraus. He's built another house in HyperX Victory Lane with absolutely dominant speed from the jump, from qualifying to the race itself. But in turn, was also able to take advantage of some of the battling behind and run away and break the toe and run ahead with his strategy to the checkered.
Get a look at the rest of the cars coming to the line, close between O'Brien and Ryan Otis. Brian Carey able to hold on as well. Another fantastic road course race. Yes, the LIS Rd IndyCar Series is a bit more swung in direction of the ovals, but when we go turning left and right, we know one thing, we are in for a treat. Harrington is going to be feeling a little bit disappointed, a little bit aggrieved with that contact, but again, I think he did that to himself. Just turning in when there was a car alongside, maybe he thought Blocker would back out, but it was coming to the final lap. You have to have thought both drivers were not going to give any quarter. It was as simple as that. And unlike what I was saying when we finished up at Nashville, JP, I very much want to see another trip here to Suzuka.
I think so as well. It's one of my favorite racetracks as well, to be honest, because of how some of the battles can fare out. It's a track where a lot of craziness can happen, too. You never know when it could strike. Guess what? The craziness struck tonight. But this is, for a reason, one of the top tracks in the world. You've seen a lot of the reasons for it with the racing it puts on here at Suzuka.
What an absolute treat. And as we now gather ourselves up and take a deep breath, let's go ahead and take a look at our SimRace 24/7 race result. 14 full seconds. It was never in question. After lap 1, we waved sayonara to Philip Kraus, a winner once more in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. It's a remarkable run that continues to roll on. Phil Kraus, 9 wins in 19 Lionheart IndyCar Series starts. Adam Blocker gets podium number 62. Still investigations to be had by race control for the lap 1 shenanigans that he had with Joshua Chin. We'll see what race control has to say about that. Aaron Morgan will round out the podium for the Graphics LPM team. He's going to be thrilled with that. It's just his 3rd podium in what is now 35 career starts. Connor Harrington with that issue on the last lap will finish down in 4th. Michael O'Brien, Ryan Otis, Brian Carey, Matt Taylor, Adam Frazier, and Lionel Callisto through the top 10. Adam Frazier at least making up some positions in the second half of the race after sliding backwards in stint number 1. Stefan Larkamp and Andrew Marquez, the teammates, swap positions into 11th and 12th, while Robert Malechka from the back of the field up 17 positions into 13th. What a drive from him and from his teammate Andrew Kinsella, plus 12 for the Canadian. Matthias Kraus, Jason Brophy, Tyler Graf, Mitchell Riggs, Josh Chin and Brian Beard will complete the top 20. It will be Chin that's most disappointed, but still showed some impressive pace. What could have been if not for the contact? Bradley Sexton, James Brandt, Dustin Wardlow, Matt Houston, and Paul Jenkins, all finishers on the lead lap, while rounding out those cars in the field that got to the checkered: Chris Fowler, Chris Lanini, and Alexander Van der Sant. Mike Grigney and Joe Branch begin the graveyard of cars that we had here in Suzuka, with Powerslide Ignition's Tony Schauin in 31st. Behind him, Ron Hacker, Alex Guyon, Barrett Rolfe, and Kite Bombers back. A frustrating day, to say the very least, for the Ascari Autosport team. And with that look top to bottom at our SimRace 24/7 race results, we lead ourselves directly into the HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. For more information, visit hyperx.com. And waiting for us in HyperX Victory Lane, the roll continues, the streak continues. It's Phil Kraus victorious once more. Phil, surely you're getting bored of winning, bored of talking to us. That's 7 wins in 9 races in 2022.
Arjuna, don't be silly. I love talking to you every race. But yeah, it was a pretty calm race today. I pretty much just controlled the pace the whole way through. Yeah, I don't know really what to say about it. I just kind of rode around. I had a bit more pace than Connor, and obviously him and Adam were having a pretty big battle through the second and third stint, so that just kind of allowed me to scoot away.
Well, I mean, you didn't have much action. What was the track like? What was the setup like? I think most people don't really have many thoughts about us going back to Nashville, the other new track we've been to so far this year, but at least based on what we saw up here in the booth, we definitely want to come back here next year.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting setup. It had some issues. Words are hard. I apologize, Arjuna. I feel like I said that last race too, but turn 1 is a particularly dangerous place because the front left gets so far on the track. Sometimes it just tries to pull you around, but I don't think Kinsella could have done much to improve that. He was telling me about that because we asked him if there was anything he could do about that. No, there wasn't really anything, but I don't know how it raced really. I didn't get to see much racing, but from what you said, I'm going to take your word for it and say it's pretty good. But Suzuka's always a really fun track to drive around. It's just a really fun track to hot lap around.
I have no doubt that we'll be speaking to you soon, hopefully with a microphone that doesn't sound like you're 300 meters underwater in a submarine. Congratulations, Phil, a winner once more.
Cheers, Arjuna.
Phil Kraus, like I said, sounds like he's underwater, but a man that had to fight back from some deep waters was Adam Blocker, who joins us now. And Adam, after lap 1 contact, you had to fight back with what we thought was half a wing, but the pit stop time didn't really tell us if it was or was not. What happened on lap 1? What happened after that from your perspective?
Yeah, first of all, I did run the whole stint with half a wing, because with the pit stops here, you don't have the crew guys, so it fixes the front wing during the rest of the stop. So honestly, I got really lucky. I'm not really sure. I haven't watched the lap 1 incident again. I think it was just a bit clumsy from both of us, maybe a little bit more on my side. I probably shouldn't have gone for that, or if I went for it, I should have been more aggressive. I kind of did a half-hearted thing. But at the same time, I think if I'm in that position, if I'm Chin, I leave a lane and he keeps the spot anyway. So I don't know. It's a bit mixed. Overall, just really frustrated, to be honest, because I feel like I had the best race pace of anybody. I feel like I had the car to win, and just I screwed it up. So.
Well, let's talk about the other bit of contact, this time at the very end of the race. Now, we did see Connor being very physical in his defense midway through the race. It got physical at the end as well. Talk to us about that. From what we saw, it kind of looked as though you were there alongside. You just really didn't have much anywhere else really to go.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Connor was just driving me like... I can't say the word that I want to say. So, like, the first time he pushed me off the track like 3 times, squeezing me on entry, all this bullshit. And then I eventually passed him, and then he drove into my side on the straight and tried to wreck us. So, and then, yeah, I was going to pass him clean, and I was making a move around the outside, and he just turned in on me. So, I mean, that's just what it is. I come to expect it from him, so.
Hey, you guys did have a great race on Monday, so, I mean, bygones be bygones. I mean, at the very least, you got some pace here. You carry that forward. I want to talk about Indianapolis coming up, of course. You won last year. We got the 4-lap qualifyings coming up a week from now before the race is a special Sunday presentation. Double points on the line. Surely, if there's any chance of you defending your championship, you have not got just to get some good points on the board. You have to win this coming Sunday, or next coming Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, right now it looks like I'm going to have to miss it because I have to go to an IndyCar test on the Monday, so I'll be flying out on Sunday, so it looks like I'm going to miss it. But yeah, I don't really, I don't know. I mean, I've been running well. I feel like most of the season just had a lot of stuff happen, so, it's just how it goes sometimes, so. Yeah, but yeah, I just want to thank everybody at Powerslide for all the support. And I think we had a pretty good team result, especially Rob and Andrew starting way down. They had good drives, and yeah, I just want to congratulate Phil on the win, and wish I could have fought him for it. And yeah, I just want to thank you guys for calling the race and all the league admins for all they do.
Adam Blocker joining us from second in today's field. We turn our attention to the final step of the podium where Aaron Morgan picked up the pieces of Connor Harrington's misfortune. And Aaron, I mean, you had some strong pace. You've been waiting for this good result on the road courses, especially after the tumultuous race at Silverstone. Your best finish of the season. It's your 3rd career podium. Talk to us about what you're feeling right now.
I'm just excited to have gotten the podium at Suzuka. This is my favorite track in the whole world. If there was one track in the whole calendar I wanted a podium on, it was this one. So I'm really glad I was now able to knock that off. I was definitely hoping those two would come together. I knew there would be some fireworks just from history. It was a little expected, and I'm glad, but ooh.
Spicy. Yes, I think we were enjoying that stuff as well. I mean, I want to ask you then about, you say this is your favorite track. You saw how it raced today. Are we coming back here if you're the schedule maker for 2023?
Well, if I'm the schedule maker, we're coming here every year, but that's bias. I don't think the racing was particularly the best. I thought, for me, I had a hard time following, but if you mismatch tires like the guys in front of me did, then you definitely had some good racing just because the grip difference was so high between them. I think I got lucky just to manage to keep some of the red guys. I had a mismatch, I think, with Van de Sant on the second stint. I'm glad I was able to keep him behind, but I don't know. I think maybe it just depends.
Your best finish before today this season was the 5th at the Nashville Super Speedway. I mean, what have you thought so far in this roller coaster of a season? Still got plenty of time to go, plenty of 2 double points races left. What are you now hoping now that you've got this podium in your back pocket?
In terms of points, I don't really know what I'm hoping because I've missed so many races, and it's just been a rough year for me, just outside of Lionheart and stuff, and that's why I was missing races. So expectations, I don't know. My hope is to just keep knocking out top 5s. I mean, I managed to get one on an oval. If I can just survive some ovals and keep doing like this on the roads, I think I'll start having some fun again. I just hope I don't have more Silverstones or Phoenix and stuff like that, and it'll be a good time.
I promise not to bring them up too much to you in the future. Congratulations on the podium, Aaron, and hopefully we get to talk to you soon as we head to Indianapolis next time out.
All right, thanks.
Good to always chat with Aaron Morgan, your 2021 Lionheart Retro Series winner. That's something that I'm sure he's a lot more happy for me to be bringing up. But JP, a great race, lots more drama to be looking at. The virtual paddock is going to be alight with excitement. That I have no doubt. But Indianapolis beckons. Indianapolis, we make our pilgrimage there. A week from today, we go racing in the HyperX Race for the Pole. But it's really all about a special Sunday presentation, June the 26th, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We're underway for the second Triple Crown race, the HyperX Indianapolis 500.
And of course, last running of this event put on a show with Adam Blocker adding his name to history with the multiple winner of this event. Now, with the pressure built up from tonight and some of the tempers building up tonight, who knows what happens at the Brickyard, and who knows how history is written this year.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, JP, because unfortunately I believe I missed the call of that race. I was very frustrated to miss that. Didn't we go caution-free? Or do we just have the caution at the start of the race? I forget.
It was a very clean race that year.
I do remember Brian Carey won't be thrilled that I'm bringing this up, but Brian Carey had a bit of a turn 1 moment, or rather I should say turn 2, because it happened in between turn 1 and 2. Took out a large chunk of the field. He was frustrated, drivers were frustrated, but sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. And to quote some famous people, Indianapolis sometimes, JP, will pick its own winner.
Exactly. You never know how strategy will play out. You never know how your luck will play out. You never know when a caution may come out. You never know what could happen in Indy.
June the 26th is the race. Again, same time, same place here on RaceSpot TV. You'll want to join us, that is for sure, on the June 22nd for the HyperX Race for the Pole. I'm disappointed I'm not going to be there, but Justin Prince will be there to talk you through all of the action. Remember as well, we're coming up to the end of the first half of the season. Just 2 races left to go in a 22 race calendar. Things do fly on past. But before we say goodbye, we'd like to thank all that helped make this possible. Butt Kicker is the title sponsor of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, and if you're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real race car, you need to check out Butt Kicker. You can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt Kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com.
Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit www.nextlevelracing.com.
Moser Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products like their R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS steering wheel. Featuring zero-delay wireless technology and made from high-end materials, Moser Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane.
Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, bringing a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com.
It's not just them, but so many more that make it happen. To learn more about the Lionheart Racing Series, to learn more about its partners, as well as the 3 competitions the sanctioning body puts on, head over to LionheartRacingSeries.com. Well, it's now all about Indianapolis. We are ready to go for the second of our Triple Crown events. Join us June 22nd for the 4-lap qualifying shootout, the HyperX Race for the Fall. Poll, same time, same place on RaceSpot TV at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Then the following Sunday, June the 26th, it's a special presentation on RaceSpot TV of the HyperX Indianapolis 500 as Adam Blocker looks to continue the momentum that he's building up race by race, continue the streak of victories that he has at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That race and every race in Lionheart is live on RaceSpot TV. And for the team at RaceSpot, for my co-commentator and Justin Prince, we thank you for joining us and we say goodbye from the land of the rising sun. Suzuka put on a show, but one thing is not different. Phil Kraus is a winner once more, 7 victories in 9 races. The momentum continues to roll on. Phil Kraus seems to be unstoppable. The Kraus train has stopped off in Suzuka. Will he stop off in HyperX Victory Lane at Indianapolis? We'll find out next week on RaceSpot TV. For now, we bid you farewell.